LA Football Podcast.
Touchdown Rams! Touchdown UCLA! Recovered by the Chargers. The Trojans back in front. Touchdown Wildcats.
With your host, Ryan Dyrud on the Bleav Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles football fans, and welcome to another episode of the Bleav In LA Football Podcast here on the Bleav Podcast Network, also on LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for all your favorite Los Angeles football needs. Got a very special episode today. Back again, back in action. The great, the only one, the coach returns from a long hiatus. Coach, my man, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Good to talk to you. Good to get the band back together.
Dude, it's so great to just hear that beautiful voice on the airwaves again. It's been too long.
It has. It has been too long.
Yeah.
This whole world has gone crazy.
Yeah, to put it lightly. And, we've kept in touch here and there, not as much as we probably should, but, times get crazy and busy. But for everyone, the listeners, what have you been up to? I mean, I know a little bit, but you've been doing a bunch of different stuff. So what have you been up to these past, I guess, since, January?
Yeah, no. So I'm still coaching, doing a little bit of freelance writing here and there, but yeah, just kind of took a full-time job, kind of focused on some personal things in my life, got engaged, so we're planning a wedding and all that stuff.
Whoop,
so
whoop.
Yeah, it's been an enjoyable few months.
Yeah, that's great. The coach is still coaching, so that's good to hear. And yeah, man, got engaged. I know we've talked a little bit. I know my wife and I are super excited for you guys. What's that process been like, trying to plan a wedding during a worldwide pandemic?
It's been interesting. So far, we haven't really hit a big roadblock. Her wedding dress shopping was definitely different than what she had planned it to be. It was just her and her mother.
Yeah.
But, still a fun experience for her. She really loved it. She found the one, I guess.
Said yes to the dress. That's the term.
Yeah, there you go.
Said
So,
yes.
I learned something new every day with this whole thing. Yeah, she said yes to the dress. And then, we got a venue booked. We booked that literally, I think, the weekend before we went on lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We got the save the dates out and stuff like that. So far, nothing's really come up. Now, we're getting closer here, and we'll have to see. But so far, everything's been fairly smooth.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's glad to hear it, and we're excited. I had a buddy who his wedding was planned for August, and the venue didn't cancel it, but they ended up just deciding to postpone it a year just to forego any if people didn't want to come or whatnot. So hopefully, man, I'm knocking on wood right now. I don't want to jinx anything, but hopefully we don't get to that point for yours, because we're definitely excited for it. And it's been a long time coming, right?
Yeah. We've been together 4 years, so definitely a long time coming. And I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, hopefully everything works out to where we can have a great day and spend it with the ones we love the most.
Totally. Either way, it's gonna be a great day. And has it only been 4 years? I feel like it's been longer than that. I don't know. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's just recently been 4 years for us.
4 years. Okay. Well, congrats. Because that's what's crazy is that in September I will have been married for 3 years, which is nuts to me that it's been that long already.
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And I thought you guys would have been at least together longer than that. But hey, that's great. So, but yeah, man, we're excited for you. I'm excited to be talking football with you again. The thing we love doing. We try to talk football at least here and there, and especially with no football on, I figured what a better time to have the coach back on and do kind of an older segment. I mean, we haven't done this segment before, but we did stuff similar throughout our tenure together on this podcast. So I thought, let's build a perfect team using the rosters, or using essentially every LA football program. So using USC, using UCLA, using the Rams and Chargers. The only catch is it can only be the Rams and Chargers during their time in LA. So the Chargers, that's essentially 4 years, 1960 and the 3 years since they've been back. And the Rams, you lose that, 20 or so year period when they're in St. Louis. So greatest year on turf is a no-go. But I thought it'd be fun, Coach. It was definitely a little more challenging going through 4 different programs' lifetime rosters to put together a 22-man team.
Yeah, it was difficult. There's in some positions, slim pickings, but then your other positions where it's like, who do I even pick? You had a plethora of guys. So this is a fun challenge, though.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing some homework, because I know I feel like when I get especially when we did this all the time, I would come up with these ideas, and I'd be like, all right, let's do this. And then afterwards, I'd be like, man, I just made him do like 4 hours of research. So I appreciate you doing that and doing it for me.
No, not a worry, man. I missed it.
Yeah, I get some learning. So I will say this before we get going. We did do 2 quarterbacks. I just thought it was way too difficult to just do one. So we did 2 quarterbacks. You got to have a good backup. And then we did 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and then every other position was 1 each. I mean, obviously 2 safeties, 2 corners, but everyone was just 1 of each actual position on the field. So just wanted to say that beforehand. But, Coach, all these years doing it, I always usually had you start. So why change now? Let's have you started off with your first quarterback. You're put on the greatest LA football team of all time.
All right. Yeah, no pressure, man. Well, my first pick, if you will, not really a pick, but I got to go with Philip Rivers.
Ooh, okay.
The most recent LA quarterback to vacate the city, if you will. Moved on to Indianapolis, but nonetheless, arguably the greatest Charger quarterback of all time outside of Dan Fouts. But yeah, I think Philip, just his grittiness, and he never he started in San Diego, but he finished strong in LA and took them to the playoffs. And they're gonna miss old Phil. They got Justin Herbert coming in, but yeah, I think Philip Rivers to me is LA football. I think probably because he moved in here about the same time we started covering LA football, so it was kind of cool to see him transition from a San Diego Charger to an LA Charger and embrace the city and stuff. So I think for me, that's why Philip Rivers would stand out.
Yeah, no, it's a great choice. He obviously crossed my mind. I mean, he's one of the great just quarterbacks in general to ever play the game, and he counts in this scenario because he did play, multiple years here in Los Angeles in that great 2018 Chargers team that went to the divisional round of the playoffs. They, if you want to call it an upset at the time, I don't know, but beat Baltimore handily in the first round. And then they had kind of a down year last year. But yeah, Philip Rivers, one of the greats to do it. So he crossed my mind. I think just the lesser tenure he played in LA compared to some of these other quarterbacks. Well, I guess in reality, the years, because I went with 2 college quarterbacks. So I guess in reality, it really didn't, as far as year-wise, make a difference. And I will say this. You could have been completely different, but when I chose my college players for position, I was basing it on their college career, not necessarily what they did in the pros. Because some of these quarterbacks, or for instance, the quarterback I'm going to say right now had a tremendous college career and not have a great pro career, but I'm basing it off his time playing in LA, and so that's why I'm going to start with Matt Leinert, who arguably one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, 65% completion percentage, went to 2 national championships, almost 11,000 yards passing, 99 touchdowns. He won the Heisman. He was just really, just the cool guy on the block here in LA. He represented the Trojans. And I think for me, he was a pretty easy choice out of the LA quarterback regime, the dynasty that we've had here in LA. Yeah,
no, that's especially based off his college career. Like you said, it was one of the statistically best college quarterbacks of all time. So yeah, he was probably the greatest USC quarterback of all time I don't really know who you could even throw in there. Maybe Sam Darnold for you more recent fans, but yeah, Matt Leinert definitely deserves a spot on this list.
Yeah, I think just the fact, the Heisman, he was in the Heisman voting multiple times, the national championships, what they did that year, just that team in general. So I love, I think Matt Leinert's a good pick for one of my quarterbacks. So who's your second QB on the list?
Yeah, for my number 2 quarterback, I went with a little off the wall pick here. I'm going to go Jim Everett from the Rams. Obviously, there's some probably better choices in the college ranks, but I feel like I dipped into college a lot on this, so I really wanted a couple pro quarterbacks in there. But Jim Everett, twice in his career in the late 80s, led the league in touchdown passes. He's one of the most premier passers in Rams history, and he played for the LA Rams, so it's hard to find a really good LA Rams quarterback outside of Jared Goff. So I had to go Everett, get a little Rams representation in there for the quarterback position.
I like it. Everett definitely crossed my mind being the greatest, if you will, LA Rams quarterback. Obviously, Kurt Warner is not applicable because he played for the St. Louis Rams. So definitely crossed my mind. He has the most passing yards, I believe, in Rams history. Goff will probably pass him when it's all said and done. But, a good choice. And the Rams are funny because they have a lot of very good quarterbacks, and they have a lot of name-recognizable quarterbacks. Norm Van Brocklin, a lot of just these big-name guys, especially with Hollywood being right here, but no real great quarterbacks. So of those, Everett, I think, would be the best. So a good choice. And you have that famous – have you seen the Jim Rome clip with him?
Yes.
Yeah. Wasn't that like the anniversary a few weeks ago or something, or a month ago, and they were playing that all over Twitter? It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it, Jim Rome repeatedly calls Jim Everett Chris Everett, like the tennis player, in an interview, and Jim Everett ends up like going across the table and, tackling him. It's great. Who knows if it's staged or not. Jim Everett says it's not staged. Anyway, look it up. So for mine, I stayed in college, and I really wrestled with this because I said, obviously, before we even started, I based this specifically on their college careers. So having said that, I probably should have gone Cade McCown, who had maybe the greatest UCLA quarterback, statistically speaking, in his entire career. But I had to go with Troy Aikman just because what he brought to the program by transferring to Oklahoma. And then even though I said I based it on college, there's still a little bit of nostalgia or a little bit of biasness when you look at what they did in the pros. Like, I'm not going to base it solely on that, but you got to look at what Troy Aikman did with the Dallas Cowboys, the Super Bowls, the MVPs, what he was able to do down there. And so he kind of built that by starting off at UCLA and turning that program into a better football program than where it was when he got there. So I went with Aikman, who, even in only 2 years, still threw 41 touchdowns, over 5,000 yards, had a 65% completion percentage, and finished third in Heisman voting 1 year. So I liked Aikman for my choice. I know it's weird going 2 college QBs, but Matt Leinert, Troy Aikman, that's not a bad duo to build your franchise on.
No, any program in America would be lucky to have those 2 guys on the roster at the same time. That's pretty impressive.
Before we move on, Coach, and I'm curious, I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole because I know we can talk about this for days. Matt Leinert, do you think, had he been drafted into a better situation, better coach, or so be it, do you think he could have been an NFL quarterback? Was it in his head? Was it his situation? Was he really just kind of a product of what that USC team was and maybe wasn't actually as good as, what his stats showed, in your opinion?
Man, yeah, that's tough. Knee-jerk reaction, I'd say, yeah, he just, no matter where he went, he just wasn't going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I get and the slower the game becomes and the more I'm able to, dig a little deeper into certain things I may not know. I think if he may have been drafted into like a quarterback-friendly offense or like some quarterback guru coach, he may have been, a career backup. He may have been a Nick Foles type where he kind of bounces around and all of a sudden he's thrust into a big situation later in his career and he shines and maybe something like that if things had gone a little differently. But I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B, but definitely one of the bigger busts in recent memory.
Yeah, just because the hype was so big, and I remember talking about if he would have gone to the draft the year before he went, he probably would have been the number 1 overall pick, stayed 1 more year in college, still went 11th overall, so not like he dropped far, and then just never really got it going at the pro level. And, not at all, I don't know him personally, do not at all want to say he's lazy, but you see this with a lot of USC quarterbacks. They play so well at USC in that program, and they never really turn the corner completely in the pros. I mean, even Carson Palmer had a very good career, but he was never up to the echelon that he was in college, never reached that peak. We see Matt Barkley, Cody Kessler, all these guys that were so good, and I think it's just coming from such a program where you're so good and everyone around you is so good, and then you get to the pros and it's just you don't have that maybe same work ethic because not everything was handed to you, but I don't know. I feel like you kind of get what I'm saying, getting at there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, yeah, we'll step off that soapbox out of that rabbit hole, as we will do, I'm sure, many times throughout this list. And let's get to running backs. 2 running backs. Coach, you are up.
My first one, man, I love my backfield.
Oh, yeah.
I went with he's been in the news recently, but I got to go Reggie Bush from USC. One of the best, if not the best college running back that I've ever seen play. I can't speak for Dickerson or any of these other guys that were studs in college. I didn't see them play. Reggie Bush, though, for me, man, I don't remember seeing a more dynamic college football player in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think are correct. Reggie Bush, one of the greatest. Welcome back to USC finally after his decade of whatever you want to call it, abandonment or abolishment or whatever, but he's back officially with the USC family. And yeah, he was one that there's so many good backs. You could just pick from the USC backfield and fill 2 of these. There's a lot of good Rams running backs. A lot of good, Chargers, unfortunately, not really because you don't get to count Delaney Tomlinson because that was the San Diego years. There's been some good UCLA running backs. There's a lot of good options. So I didn't actually go Reggie, but he was my, if I had 1A, 1B, he was my 1C. He was my next choice. So I'll start off, though, with my USC selection because, again, you could just choose all USC running backs. And we've had this talk before when we ranked either we did an LA Football running back list, I can't remember, or we did a specific USC running back list, Coach. And this was my first, so I had to stick with it, and I went with O.J. Simpson, who, again, talking strictly play on the field, strictly what he did at USC, none of his extracurriculars after college, but the guy was the juice. I mean, he got the name for a reason. 2 years at USC, almost 3,500 yards, 36 touchdowns. You look at some of the stats of some of the other greats, Charles Whites, Marcus Allen, maybe double the yards, but also played 3 to 4 years in college, where OJ only played 2 years at SC. So those 2 years was so dominant, so good. Got the name the juice for a reason. Obviously became one of the first running backs in NFL history to rush for over 2,000 yards with Buffalo. So looking just strictly at the football field, O.J. Simpson is a dominant force when he ran back in the 60s.
Yeah, controversial name for sure, but you said it perfectly. When you just look at his body of work on the football field,
yeah,
one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right, who are you going with your second?
So I went into the pros for this. Eric Dickerson for the Rams. Just unbelievable talent at the running back position. When he ran, just looked like he glided. I don't even know if that's a word. Glided?
Yeah, I think you're good. Glowed would be a word too. It just means something different, I think.
Oh boy, but no, yeah, I went with the Eric Dickerson. Great college running back at SMU. Played his pro ball here in LA for the Rams. Really, probably the first great Rams running back, and he still, has that single season rushing record. Who knows if it'll ever be broken at this point in the game?
Yeah.
Eric Dickerson, man. I want him on my squad with Reggie Bush. That's scary. That's a scary one, too.
That is a very scary one, too. And I went with Eric Dickerson, too. You can't have an LA Football running back list or a team and not have Eric Dickerson on it. Granted,
right.
Everyone forgets. I mean, he only played with the Rams from 83 to 87. So, I mean, as far as running back years are concerned, that's a pretty decent long career. But obviously, then he goes to Indianapolis and played elsewhere. But those were his best years. Were here in LA. He really put LA. I mean, LA had good teams before, but he made them a staple here in Los Angeles. With the rec specs that he wore, the style of play he had. He's still super involved in the organization out there back in LA. He's on the sidelines. He's on the radio all the time. So ED has to be someone that is on this list. 56 touchdowns in those 5 years. And I think for me, again, I would not have Eric Dickerson regardless of an LA Football list. But for me, the combination of the power and the prowess of O.J. Simpson and the speed and elusiveness of Eric Dickerson, that's such a powerful 1-2 punch. Reggie Bush, Eric Dickerson, similar in a way, also different. You can't go wrong with either way. Just a great backfield.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, here's where I think we're going to have a lot of differences at wide receivers. So you get 3 choices. Do you want to say all 3, or do you want to go back and forth like we've been doing?
I'd be good to lump them in.
Okay. Lump them in. Let's hear it. I'll jump in if I want to jump in and out of anything. But yeah, let's hear your 3 receivers.
Yeah, sounds good. So, yeah, not a lot of things to say individually. I think as a group, these 3 would really be a dynamic trio, especially when they're each at their primes. So I went Jordan Payton from UCLA.
Nice.
Juju Smith-Schuster, USC. And then Keenan Allen from the Chargers. I think those 3 would be just absolutely killer. And it really doesn't matter who your quarterback is. If you got those 3 out in space with each of their strengths and what they bring to the table, and they complement each other so well, I don't know, man. If I'm a defensive coordinator game planning to stop that passing threat, I'm up all week.
Yeah, those are 3 great. I love it that the one we had, so I had 2 different ones. The one we had the same, if I can speak, was Keenan Allen. And I know it's, the Chargers have a lot less players to choose from because of their timing here in LA, but Keenan Allen is arguably top 3 receivers in the game right now, probably the number 1 route runner in the game, still only 28 years old. He had early, injury history, but he's been really healthy ever since. So I love Keenan Allen. So yeah, we're both in agreement there. He's just a great pick. Just your true every down possession receiver that you need in today's NFL. Next, I went with Keyshawn Johnson, who, if you go down the great USC receivers, he might not even be considered in the top 5, at least statistically. You have Dwayne Jarrett, who put up like 41 touchdowns in his time there or something, a name that not a lot of people remember. Mike Williams is great. Obviously, you mentioned Juju. Marquise Lee, I think, actually is the greatest statistical U.S. receiver. But Keyshawn Johnson, in the era he played in, less pass-heavy, He ended up being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, which is very rare for a receiver. And just he's LA. He's on ESPN LA out here. Still has a radio station. He's your classic kind of prima donna receiver, which maybe you love it, maybe you hate it. But anyway, I like Keyshawn. My last one, I went way back in time with Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. Played for the Rams. He's 4th all time on the Rams, so I know that's odd. But obviously your top 2 are going to be Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, who played in St. Louis. So they don't count. But just the era he played in, being back in the let me see here. It was the 1950s, the late 40s, late 40s, early 50s, when the league was not entirely a passing league. So just remember that. 1950s. He went for 1,495 yards and 17 touchdowns in 1951. That's a crazy stat that if you can imagine him playing in today's game, maybe that stat's even pushing 2,000 yards or so. So anyway, those are my 3. Went a little bit back in time. Got a little blend of each there. Just couldn't throw in a UCLA receiver with the 3 I took.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love those 3. I definitely agree with Alan. He's on mine as well.
Yeah.
And then, Crazy Legs. He did cross my mind. But I went with Keenan Allen for my pro receiver. And then, Keyshawn Johnson. You said it all, man. For where the era he played, and I think he's one of only, I don't even know, 2 or 3 receivers to be number 1 overall. I mean, that's huge. That's pretty unreal.
We've had this talk before, trying to think of who the other ones were, and off the top of my head, I know there have been more than just him, but it's definitely rare.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, well, great. Well, there we go. Either way, those are 6, or I guess 5, because we had one the same 5 extremely good receivers building their squad on. So tight end. A little more slim pickings, surprisingly, with all the great history of UCLA, USC, Rams, and Chargers. Obviously, again, Antonio Gates can't have him. Kellen Winslow can't have him because those are in San Diego. So, a little more slim pickings here. I'm curious who you went with. I had 2 choices that I was debating between, so I'm curious who you went with, Coach.
Yeah, I kind of was lazy on this one. I went Hunter Henry.
Okay.
More recent, obviously, but also, he's, in terms of LA tight ends, he's probably the best. Like statistically, and he hadn't been playing that long, but this one was tough. There's not a lot pure LA tight ends that have been that great.
Yeah, and especially I think until recently as well, aside from Kellen Winslow, who kind of changed the tight end position, but overall the tight ends, you have your outliers of Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez, but typically tight ends they're blocking that get 1 catch a game. They finish the season with 18 to 20 receptions, so there's really not a huge pool of tight ends in general until obviously now in the last 5 years it's become a premier skill position, and it's every team, if you don't have one, you're behind the 8 ball kind of. So I think that's part of it. But I actually went way back in time to Hal Bledsoe, who played tight end for USC, won the 1962 national championship with the team, and he is in the College Football Hall of Fame. So I figured, why not have a College Football Hall of Famer? Great name like Hal, and I'll have him line up on my squad. But I like Hunter Henry. It's a good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, Hal Bledsoe. Know nothing about him. This is the first time ever hearing about him. But hey, I like it. I can dig it.
There you go. College Football Hall of Fame. So I need to know. The only other option really that crossed my mind was Mercedes Lewis. Played at UCLA. And I think he's still playing in the NFL. The guy's played for like 20 years. So
yeah.
But little more slim pickings. Okay. All right. So the offensive line. I don't know if you had trouble with this, and it wasn't because there wasn't a lot of options. For me, it was because there was too many good options. And obviously looking at offensive line, especially if you're looking at past teams that we didn't grow up watching, it's really hard to, rank based on guys that we haven't watched. I mean, I could watch today's NFL and be like, oh yeah, I'll rank this tackle over this tackle. But when we're talking about guys that played in the 70s and the 60s, you can look at like past lists, but there's no like statistical category really for offensive guard or center. So this was a little more difficult for me. But Coach, I'll let you start. Left tackle, I'm assuming probably at left tackle we have the same guy.
I would assume so. I went Jonathan Ogden, UCLA.
That was the only shoo-in of this whole offensive line.
Yeah, 100% agree. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't allow a sack in his entire career at UCLA. He was just unbelievably talented.
So good.
One of the best tackles to ever come out of college football. He was a top 5 pick. Had a great career with the Ravens. So yeah, Jonathan Ogden, man. If you're building an offensive line, he's penciled in right off the get-go.
Yeah, that one was easy. That was actually the first player I wrote down on this entire list. Outside of no quarterback, no, I put Jonathan Ogden because I'm like, that's the one that I know there's no debate. That's the easy slam dunk one. So I'll just stay with you. I had that too. Go give me, I guess we'll stay on the left side. Give me your left guard.
I went Jackie Slater from the Rams. He played in that era where it was just it took a nasty man to play in the offensive line. There were some things that went on down there that I wouldn't tell my kids about. So I think Jackie Slater, just the grittiness and the toughness that he would bring to the table, I want him on my side.
Yeah, he was literally the sixth man out of my five. I was going back and forth. So I love Jackie Slater, and I wanted him on my offensive line so bad. I just couldn't quite do it. And for anyone listening, Slater did primarily play tackle, but he did play guard. So you're fully allowed to have him as your left guard, coach. I just want to reiterate that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate
that. And so for my left guard, again, Slater just missed the cut. I went with Ron Yari, played at USC. He was a first overall pick. He's in the Pro Football and the College Football Hall of Fame. He played mainly for the Vikings and the pros. He did finish his career with the Rams, so a little more LA contribution there. But Ron Yari is a great guard. I don't know how much you know about him, but if you look at just rankings of offensive linemen, he had a obviously stellar USC career. If you're drafted first overall as an offensive lineman, you had a pretty good college career, and then went on to have a great program, go to the Hall of Fame. So I think he's a good guard for my squad.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about him. I've definitely seen the name pop up a lot, but yeah, like you said, it's hard to kind of rank these guys because in eras we didn't see.
Yeah,
kind of hard.
And a lot of these names, when you're looking through, you're like, yeah, I know the name, and like, yeah, okay, that's about it. What are we gonna look at? How many pancakes he had through his career? So,
exactly.
But Ron Yari is one of the grass. Okay, so center, coach, who you got at center?
This one was pretty easy for me. I went Ryan Khalil.
Ooh,
more
good
recent
one.
Guy,
okay.
But then, excuse me, sorry. And then he wanted to have a pretty stellar NFL career too. But yeah, definitely one of those guys that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. You kind of forget he played for USC.
Totally.
Really one of the most productive offensive linemen to come out of there.
Yeah, that's great. Honestly, I forgot about Ryan Khalil. You're looking at so many names. But that's a great pick. I like it. Definitely a newer name. So yeah, good job, coach. I like that. Ryan Khalil at center. So I went with Bruce Matthews. I want to say he's the uncle of Clay Matthews. I don't think he was the dad. But
yeah, I think he was the uncle. Now here's something. I have him as my right guard, so that's interesting.
So yeah, he played guard and center when I looked it up. Played both.
Yes, he did. This is true.
So that's why I slid it. Because I feel like it's easier to move from tackle to guard instead of tackle to center. So I slid a guy that played tackle over to my other guard position. So I wanted Bruce to be my center. So yeah, that was my reasoning. Bruce, great career at USC. Went on to 14 Pro Bowls in the pros. Was a 9-time All-Pro. Played the entire career with the Houston, Tennessee organization. So Bruce Matthews for me was an easy choice, and I guess you can just continue on since you have him at your guard position.
Yeah, no, everything you said, that's exactly why I wanted him. Yeah, great football player. I'm totally understand why you're shifting you guys around. I love that. You try to get your best five out there, man. I love it.
That's right. That's right. So
yeah, Bruce Matthews. Bruce Matthews for me would just slide right in the guard.
Perfect. So then just stay with you in your last spot with your – wait, no. So you did your center – yeah, you did Ryan Khalil. So your right tackle, your last spot on the offensive line.
All right, so this one was I went with a USC Trojan. I went
you know what?
Tyron Smith.
You know what, Coach?
Yeah.
Sorry, you already said the name, but I forgot I got to do my guard and tackle, so I guess I'll squeeze in and then you can end with your tackle. So my right guard, I have Ron Mix, who played at USC, primarily played tackle, did play some guard, though, so I'm not just fully just moving him over. He did play a little bit of guard, but he was a good pick. First of all, he's a Hall of Famer. Anyone that knows football knows the name Ron Mix. Great player. But not only did he play for USC, he was one of the original LA Chargers in 1960, and then obviously went on to play for the San Diego Chargers once they moved to San Diego in 1961. So played for USC, played for the original Chargers in 1960, so he's kind of an LA staple here, Ron Mix. So, all right, sorry, go ahead. Now to your right tackle.
No, I love that pick. I really do. That pick came across my table. Yeah, I think because I didn't know very much about him, I think that's why I left him off mine.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I like it. So, yeah, my right tackle is Tyron Smith. I know
Yep.
Primarily played left tackle, but, hey, this guy has been so dominant at every level he's played. he'll be okay switching to the right side. So I got Jonathan Ogden, Tyron Smith, two of the best Pac-12 tackles to ever play college football. And they both happen to play in Los Angeles for rival schools. So I got them bookended and protecting my quarterbacks.
I love it. And, dude, I feel like Tyron Smith gets disrespected, at least at the college level. Like, there's not, when I was researching, he's a name I thought of, obviously, because he's a stable at USC. But when you're looking at, like, top college tackles or even just going through USC blogs and looking at, top USC players, he is not a name that gets even brought up in the top, like, 25, top, 50. And he's arguably one of their best. I mean, you have him on your right tackle as one of the greatest LA tackles team, and he's been just nothing but dominant with the Cowboys. I mean, that's a great pick.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
We're giving him the respect needed. So, for my tackle position, I stayed older again. I went with Anthony Munoz. Played at USC as well, so pretty much we have the one UCLA guy, and then I went with 4 USC after that. No pros. But he's considered one of the greatest linemen of all time, Hall of Famer. Played, I want to say, his whole career with Cincinnati, definitely the bulk of it with the Bengals. But yeah, just a great tackle out of USC. So I think Ogden and Munoz, Ogden and Smith, either way, you can't go wrong with either of those 4.
Yeah, Munoz was definitely my number 6. It was going to be him or Tyron Smith. And yeah, Munoz is an animal.
So good. So good. Yeah. I know I went Smith more the eyeball test because we were able to watch him a little bit and watching him currently. So
Right.
Well, okay, that's a pretty good offense. I wonder, I'm not going to go through each of our picks again, but I'm curious what team, if we did like a poll at the end, what offense would be seen more potent, mine or yours? Maybe for another time we'll look through that.
Yeah,
so
I'd be down.
All right, there he goes. Okay, now on to the defense. The defense, I don't know if it was easier, harder. I don't know. We'll just get right into it. Do you want to start on the line? Or you want to start in the back end?
Let's start on the line. Let's get in the trenches. Dirty.
Okay, cool. So I know, Coach, when we talked a little bit, we talked about just, whatever if you want to do 3-4, 4-3, however you base your selections off is up to you. So I'll let you start with whatever defensive line position you would like to start with.
Okay. So I went with a 4-3 defense. So I'm actually just going to put all my 4 defensive linemen. I'm just going to shout them out right now.
I bet we're going to have the same if you're doing that. We're probably going to have the exact same, but go right ahead.
All right. So I went with 1 defensive end. I went Joey Bosa.
Okay. I didn't have him actually, so okay, go ahead.
Okay. And then the defensive tackle position, Aaron Donald.
Yep.
The second D tackle, Merlin Olsen.
Yep.
And then your other defensive end, Deacon Jones.
Yeah. Okay. So we had all but Joey Bosa, who I love Bosa, and I debated. I went with Jack Youngblood instead of Bosa, but
yeah, I did the same thing. I had Jack Youngblood at first, actually, and then I was gonna have Youngblood and Bosa. Then I forgot about. I was like, oh, Deacon, you gotta have Deacon in there. So then I kicked Youngblood off.
Yeah, and that's so hard. Yeah, I felt biased going 4 Rams in there, but I'm like, that squad. Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen, Youngblood, and you throw in Aaron Donald. Are you freaking kidding me? And then, like you said, take out Youngblood and put in Joey Bosa. Disgusting. I can't believe 3 of those 4 actually played together in real time for the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, the fearsome foursome. Do you remember who the 4th one was?
I don't.
I'm drawing a blank right now. But yeah, the fearsome foursome, just dominant. So yeah, I don't think either way you could go wrong with the big 3 of Donald, Olsen, and Jones, then trade out Youngblood or Bosa. Yeah, I like all that. I obviously did the same, so I went 4-3. So, okay. All right, let's get the linebacking core. This is, again, we might be very similar in this, but we'll see.
Yes. Yeah. This one, to me, I don't know. We'll see. So I went Junior Seau, obviously. I think he's the one you write in for the defense.
Yeah.
There's no debate.
I'm assuming you had him at middle, at the mic?
Yes.
Perfect.
And
Same.
then so on either side of them, I had Donnie Edwards, who played for UCLA, and then Anthony Barr, who played for UCLA.
Oh, okay. Okay. I like that. I went different. I don't know. Go ahead if you want to explain yourself at all, or if you want me to just jump in.
No, go ahead. I'm interested to hear yours.
Okay, so yeah, Junior Seau at the mic, one of the greatest just linebackers in football history, collegiate and professionally. So that was a super easy one. If Jonathan Ogden was my right-in on the offense, Junior Seau was my right-in on the defense. And then I went at the Sam linebacker. I went with Eric Kendricks. So that's why I found it. I was like, okay, you went with Eric, or you went with Anthony Barr. I went with Eric Kendrick. I think both you could really argue who was better than the other. They both had great careers at UCLA. I just happened to, I guess, value Kendricks a little bit higher. And then at the will, I went with a little older Richard Wood. Might not be a name people remember as much at USC, but he's arguably one of the greatest USC linebackers of all time. The only linebacker in USC history, get this, with all the great USC linebackers, Clay Matthews, Raymel Luga, Brian Cushing, obviously Junior Seau, all these great linebackers, Richard Wood is the only 3-time All-American out of all of them. So I have him. He's came in as a freshman, he would have been even better, but at the time freshmen couldn't play for the varsity squad, so he didn't play freshman year. And the fact that his nickname is Dick Wood, going with that all day.
Yeah, I do love that pick. I like that. I like the old school feel of that. And you with the nicknames, man. You've always been a fan of the nicknames. I love it.
I don't even know if he had a nickname, but as soon as I saw Richard Wood, I'm like, that guy's name is freaking Dick Wood. Yeah, he's going on my linebacking core, 100%. I didn't even look at his statistics. I'm like, Dick Wood, he's in.
I love it.
Real quick, let me get off on a really random tangent for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what the most common last name is in the world?
I would assume Smith, but it's probably not.
I think Smith is the most common, American last name, but the most common in the world is Wang, the Chinese last name, Wang. And obviously, when a lot of Chinese move to America, they take on American first names. And I just want to know, especially if there's someone listening, is there any Richard Wangs out there? I've always wanted to meet a Dick Wang. I think that'd just be amazing.
Yeah, we need to make that happen.
Right? There's got to be one. Someone came over here, they wanted to Americanize. Richard looks like a common name. Took it and didn't realize that Dick is short for it. Now they're just walking around the streets of New York known as Dick Wang.
LDW.
Oh, D-Dub. So.
Oh, man.
All right.
I miss that beautiful mind of yours.
Beautiful. If you want to call it that, I will. I appreciate that. So, all right. Well, let's get back to our seats now and go on with our scheduled programming. So we have the good linebackers there. Then we go to corners. Coach, we talked about corners were a little tougher. I'll let you start.
Yeah, they were. So I went with one guy who I don't want to say his pro career influenced me to make him a part of my team, but his pro career definitely stands out to me for why I remember him. So I don't know. I mean, he had a good college career, so he belongs. But I went Jason Sehorn.
Ooh, okay.
And then my other one, I went Adoree Jackson. I love the speed. I love the dynamics of, he can be a return guy and stuff like that. And, he's a pretty good shutdown corner as well.
Okay. I'll get to Adoree in a second. I love the Sehorn pick. Remind everyone where he played his college ball.
Yeah, man, he played his college ball right here in LA. He was a Trojan. He played for USC.
I think everyone forgets that, myself included, for a while. And obviously, he was kind of a. Why do you think he was so well known in the pros? Because not that he had a bad career in the pros, but I feel like Jason Sehorn became like a household name. Obviously, he did some special team stuff. He's kind of a good-looking guy, charismatic, played in New York. But why do you think it was that he became so well known after playing at USC?
Well, he was only there for 2 years. He played 2 years of junior college before arriving at USC. And he came in as a receiver, but they were so talented there that they actually moved him over to the defensive side of the ball. So I think he just he was this versatile guy. Nobody really knew where to put him. He was a junior college guy. So I don't really think he made a big name for himself until he got to the pros. He worked his way up from a junior college prospect to a second round draft pick. So I think a lot of people didn't know who he was in college, so they weren't paying attention. But and then he gets to the pros, and all of a sudden he's on a much bigger stage. He's in New York. They go to a Super Bowl. Now all of a sudden people start noticing you and recognizing your name. Yeah,
no, 100%. Yeah, I think also he brought with him to the pros that versatility, that kind of jack of all trades, utility, Swift Army knife kind of thing that he could do. So I love that pick, man. That was not one I thought of. So good choice. Good choice on you. I also went with Adoree Jackson. Probably, if we're being honest, the greatest corner in USC history that I can really think of. Had a great USC, won the Jim Thorpe Award. He was an All-American, first-round draft pick for Tennessee. Like you said, the speed, so you hit the head there, nail on the head there. So I like Adoree Jackson. And then the other corner, I went with Casey Hayward. I know it's a small sample size in LA per se, but he had a good career before coming to the Chargers with Green Bay, and then he's really taken off with the Chargers. And another guy that really doesn't get a lot of respect, but I think he's for sure top 10, maybe even arguably a top 5 corner in the NFL, even still to this day. So yeah, I like Casey Hayward. So you have Adoree Jackson and Casey Hayward. That's a pretty good pairing out of your corner positions.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I do. Casey Hayward did cross my mind, but this was a weird, oddly shallow pool to choose from.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Very surprised. Did you happen to see? I think it was CBS Sports just released. They did a bunch of rankings for a bunch of positions, and did you see those? I know the ones I'm thinking of specifically were the corner rankings.
No, I don't believe I did see that.
Yeah, so they just came out. I mean, they were Twitter does their thing, and everyone just is pissed about everything, and nothing's ever right. But hey, it's fun. It's the off season. But yeah, they did their top 10. They did all of them, safety, corner, but corner specifically. Yeah, they didn't have Casey Hayward in the top 10, and they had Marcus Peters too. I know your feelings on Marcus Peters. I don't think you'd have him at 2 overall.
This is based on 2019.
Yeah, current times.
Wow. Yeah, that's not how I would go.
Yeah, I was surprised. So anyway, I just mentioned the disrespect to Casey Hayward, who, anyway, I'd have him in there. So, okay, the safety position. A lot of great safeties in just LA football history, for sure at the college ranks, but the Rams, Chargers have good safeties, obviously currently have a really good safety. For me, it was a 3-horse race, so going into 2 is tough. How did you see it?
Yeah, and I probably left off the one that a lot of people are going to be upset about, he probably does belong in this list. But I did not go with the obvious one, and I went with Troy Polamalu from USC.
Yep.
And then I paired him with Kenny Easley from UCLA.
Wow, we had the same too. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and the obvious one we left off was Ronnie Lott, who could go down maybe as the greatest safety collegiately and professionally. For me, I had to have Kenny Easley. I'll let you talk on it too, but I had to have Kenny Easley, 3-time All-American. Just did so much for the position in the time he played, college and pro Hall of Famer. What he did for the UCLA program, he was just so good. As a freshman, I think he absolutely dominated the league. And then I had to have Troy Polamalu, who just redefined the position. He could do it all. Could play down in the box as a linebacker. Could play in the safety position. The hair, the swagger, the charisma, the big playability. Troy Polamalu, just for the character, is I think why I put him over Ronnie Lott. Even though you could argue Ronnie Lott had a great character too. So I don't know what your decision making went into that.
Very similar to your reasoning. I think Troy Polamalu, just with his ability to recognize the play, and you see him all the time, the highlights of him timing out the snap, and just the way he played the position was so different. And you mentioned a Swiss Army knife. Well, Polamalu could play corner, he could play safety, he could play linebacker, he could play a lot of different positions, but he obviously thrived at safety. And then Kenny Easley, the 3-time All-American for UCLA, probably one of the best safeties in the game at the time, and then he gets overlooked so often. He never really gets brought up. So I kind of wanted to give him a shout out here, but obviously Ronnie Lott, I mean, you could even argue he belongs with the cornerback position more than the guys we chose. So it's tough to leave off Lott. Yeah,
it was real tough, and oh man, what he's meant for that program and what he did. But yeah, just something about Polamalu, and then Kenny Easley, as I mentioned, great as a freshman. I think I may have said this, but not 9 interceptions as a freshman in 1 year. And one little tidbit I found that was interesting. It's not necessarily factual, but it's been reported that Kenny Easley was recruited by 350 different programs. I don't even know if there was that many, but reportedly recruited by 350 programs. So I'm definitely recruiting him to my program with the LA football team.
That's awesome. I love it.
Right? Little fun tidbit. So, well, dang. Well, there you have it. There's our list. Our defenses were very similar. I think we literally had 3 different players. I'm going through it here. Yeah, I think we had like 3 or 4 different players. And then offense had a lot more differences, but some similarities as well. So I think those were pretty solid teams, Coach.
Yeah, I think so. I'd go to war with any of those squads.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do that. Maybe not necessarily us, but have other podcasters do that for their city and see which squad, do like a bracket kind of thing. So like we have the LA football team, we combine our teams. You have obviously other teams don't have 4 teams necessarily, but still you could go with your one college, your one pro team, Miami Dolphins and University of Miami. You could create some great teams out of those two. It'd be fun to kind of do a bracket to see which city would reign supreme for the football. I think that's something we need to put in motion.
That would be fun. You know what? Let's go ahead and kick that off.
I think that needs to happen. So I'm keeping you on for that when we do that. So we'll definitely get together again. But Coach, I appreciate you coming back on and sitting with me and talking football. I've missed you so much. So thanks for coming back on with me.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime, my friend. It was a joy to be with you again and talk some football. This was fun. It was just a good evening.
Yeah, the coach. Great to hear his voice. Everyone follow the coach. Coach Graf 34, correct? Is that the Twitter? Coach Graf 34?
Yes, sir.
Coach Graf 34 is a Twitter. Does some stuff for Chiefs Wire. Does some freelance stuff. So one of the best. I love him. One of my best friends. Getting married soon. Super happy for him. Thank you all for listening. This is the Bleav In LA Football podcast. We will talk to you guys all soon.